Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Good to have you. We had a
you.
little hiccup with the leaf blowing dudes outside, but I think we're gonna go ready to go now.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show,
Thank you.
Steve.
Glad to be
And
here.
yes, and you are a leadership coach. Think this is going to be a great conversation. I think you have a lot of good things to share with us and with our audience today.
Sure.
So let's start over and talk about what a leadership coach is and what you do in that regard.
Sure. So if you think about leadership, is we're all leaders in some aspect of our life,
Right.
right? Whether we're leading ourselves, maybe our personal health, leading what we need to do for the day, maybe leading others, a family, maybe leading staff. If we're a business owner or a manager, we might have others that are depending on us, right? So leadership aspect is this aspect where I'm coming in and I'm influencing others and how I am, how I show up, my attitude, my behavior, right? My intentions.
Ooh.
And on the same side of it, there's kind of a life coaching aspect as well of, am I taking care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in the aspect of growing myself, applying things for myself as I'm working with others.
Right.
So it's kind of a both and relationship. So leadership really is influence. A lot of times people go, I need to have a degree in this, or I need to go out and add more things behind my name.
Right.
That's not really leadership. Leadership is a decision.
Right.
It's a decision of showing up how I show up with other people and my influence on them.
It's interesting play, and you even said the word, and when I was thinking it before, right when you said it was, it's like a relationship between intention and potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, and using your intention wisely, probably to aiming, even if, you would think it's going to be most of the time to your potential,
Right.
or even showing yourself that you have more potential than you maybe think at first.
Right.
Yeah. And then a lot of that potential is like, how can I help the other people in this world?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the key thing, is the intention of how you show up as a leader, but also your intentions for the other person that you're serving, the other person that you're helping, the other person that you're supporting, the other person that you're guiding, perhaps, and it's your intentions of how you want that relationship to be built. So you're absolutely right. Leadership is relationship. Put them side by side simultaneously. That's exactly what leadership is it's my growth in relationship to myself and my growth in relationship with others.
Yeah. And, that innately has a lot of responsibility built into it, right? And the reason why I kind of, that sparked in my brain was thinking, well, who am I, because this is just my personality, who am I to tell, or to maybe not tell you, but even try to influence you in a certain direction?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it requires responsibility, because maybe you've done a lot of work on yourself and whatever, and it's not that you're trying to be self-righteous,
Right.
as much as it is, it's like, look, it's pretty safe to say this is a good general direction for anybody to go and to help people maybe embody that lifestyle, or maybe not lifestyle, or trait or something like that.
Yeah, when you think about it from a life coaching aspect, is we might be working on something to help you in your personal wellness, the way you eat, exercise, sleep, right, or the way that you're growing in your own career, expanding your business, or going back to school maybe to learn a new trade. Whereas you're taking that and you're carrying on to your intentions, your commitment to helping others. So your impact on other people,
Right.
as a reflection, a result of how you're taking action in your own life. And that's where a lot of the work that I do comes in, is kind of I want to call it the reality check, or the transparency, kind of being vulnerable. Because a lot of people that I work with are, in a leadership role where they look strong on the outside, or kind of stoic, I work with a lot of physicians, for instance, and amazing people, and they don't a lot of times get enough credit and enough acknowledgement for the hard work they do, but often they don't have a safe place to really be just a human being, to get real with themselves and how they're doing, and the things that they need to do to pour into themselves.
Right. Like they have to tell a lot of people really difficult things a lot of times. Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't get a chance to sit with their own difficulties.
That makes that, I think, yeah.
because it looks like a sign of weakness to
Yeah.
others. Like, you're a doctor, you're supposed to know the answer to this.
Right.
I'm a human being first and the doctor second.
Right. There's a balance between
Yeah.
confidence and humility.
Yes.
Is that?
That's it. It's that place of, just because I don't know it doesn't make me weak, doesn't make me less than.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a journey.
And how
It's a
does
process.
How does that make these types of people more effective when you kind of you get them thinking about that?
Because it comes down to how people think of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We call it, like, if I'm working with somebody that's a leader, unlimited beliefs. A lot of times we can get down to, am I worthy
Right.
of this? Am I worthy of love, for instance?
Right.
Am I worthy? Can I accept myself and where I'm at?
Right. And those are really foundational base
Oh,
level.
big time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we're comparing ourselves to other people. Oh, they're doing this.
Mhm.
I should be as well. So I call it, I should on myself. So I said, stop shoulding on yourself, in the sense of comparing yourself to someone else versus getting down to who you're meant to be.
Right.
Figuring out who you are independent of, I basically am looking at how other people are doing it, and that's how I judge my success.
It's such a rough place to put yourself.
Yeah.
It's totally unfair.
Yeah.
They have a totally different life leading up to the moment that you decided to, like, compare yourself to them at that moment.
Yes.
They're two different math equations.
Yeah.
And
We're taught that in society too, right?
Yeah.
We're, and this is where it's fun to sit down with people. It's because I'm always asking, where does your goals come from? A lot of times it's an external comparison of someone else, how they're doing.
Well, it's hard to find the internal stuff.
It is, right?
It's buried deep.
Because when you think about failure, what is failure? Oh, I didn't get my business up and running in 3 years, then I'd set for it to be done by here. It's like, but that's not failure. It's just you need to reset the timeline and your commitment to it. Well, other businesses will do it in this time, or I should have. But it's usually comparing to something else.
Completely different set of circumstances.
Yeah, versus how badly do I want this? Kind of the I will until we redirect, we reestablish. And sometimes they're just on the completely wrong, kind of climbing up the wrong tree.
Right.
But then we redirect. But a lot of times we put these expectations, but we never really match with our agreement. Oops, excuse me.
You're good.
Our agreement to what we want to do with it and how we align to it and checking in with it. We just kind of set a compass and, like, awesome, I'm going to go for it.
Right.
Without really evaluating ourselves often.
Target, like and the target goals are good and everything. Like, oh, okay, let's, like, in 10-month goal, whatever, 3-year goal.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But when it looks different than you expected,
Right.
don't be surprised, because, like, the way what I've learned, at least, is the way that things pan out over a span of time. Is such, you can certainly influence the heck out of it. Definitely. I'm not saying that you don't have no control or anything like that. But what I am saying is, just like the earth rotates every day and you see the sunrise every day, it's like that span of time is going to play out like it's going to play out, depending on your influence. But your arbitrary imaginative vision of what that exact 3-year mark looks like is, like, great for a direction, but you hitting the exact mark that you had in your imagination it's 0% going to happen, because you are one person, one point of influence.
Yeah.
And you can have an incredible amount of influence for one person.
Right.
But the rest of the world has way more influence than you have. And so, not to say you don't have that control, but it's getting blended with all this other stuff that you would never be able to predict.
That's it. So a lot of times when I'm working with people in leadership, reestablishing a goal is a place I come from, not a place I go to, because of that.
Okay.
Meaning, a goal is a place I come from. I'm living it out every day in pursuit of something. So I'm realigning myself daily. I don't have to wait to get there before I can receive the goal.
That is beautiful.
I'm not waiting, because then we have this expectation we'll never meet. I'm so close, so close. Well, that's the value of a vision is, kind of like what Stephen Covey talks about, begin with the end in mind, which is great, but not in itself.
Right.
If you just left it at that, you'd be like, great, I have my vision. It's wonderful. But we actually a back all the way up to today, I call it soul line work. So it's kind of two aspects I work as a leadership coach is goal line, setting the trajectory of my vision. What do I want to accomplish? Business growth. How much do I want to make? How do I want my family to look? How many kids I want to have, right? Mm-hmm. But it's linear time. It's based on when I do this, then this happens. Well, having a goal, a place I come from is more of I can live this out today in how I show up in the world, my intentions of being a loving person.
Right.
My intentions of showing up and actually taking one step forward to see a relationship expanded, to see something I need to do to see my business expand. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say leadership is relationships, because the soul line work is that relationship with myself. How am I doing today? Mm-hmm. And how am I doing with others today? So the 3-year vision might be nice, but your vision's probably going to shift and change over time based on the feedback about yourself and others
for sure
in the world that you're having experiences with. So your vision's never just going to stay static. Here, I launched 3 years, boom, go for it. So go from.
Well, and you're setting yourself up for horrible
That's it.
grievance.
That's it. And a goal from, you see your gains.
Yeah.
If it's a goal to, you see your gaps.
You're getting like this constant ROI on happiness.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a big one. And the reason why I say a lot of the audience, or I should say the clients that I work with, physicians, really struggle with this. They can't see their gains. It's always gaps. It's always somebody measuring.
In their industry, do you find that a lot of them have the same types of goals? Or
not their personal goals, or it depends on personal or career goals.
Right. In the external ones that we all get caught up in.
That's it. Well, here's what happens. This is where the leadership part comes in. They're trying to make a difference in their workspace, maybe with their patients, with their staff, with their colleagues, with their company. Mm-hmm. But they're forgetting to look in the mirror at themselves and seeing how they're doing first. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that's a place where I come in. They're trying so hard to make an impact here, but
so it's like great intentions.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be a servant leader.
That's it. But that starts with themselves, and that's where they struggle.
Yeah.
I don't work out. I don't eat right. I don't sleep. I don't spend time with my spouse. I don't spend time with my kids. I haven't taken a vacation. I go, oh, well, how are we going to make the influence that we really need to make without doing those things?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of, in a way, it's a great kind of a gut check, but it's also a great reestablishment of where does change come from? Right? It's kind of like Gandhi says, be the change that you want to see in the world. Mm-hmm. That's where the leadership coaching I go gets down to the point of how am I living and walking it myself first, and then how's my impact in my workplace and my community second, because they'll a lot of times come to me to coach and be like, I need to get something better in a working conflict relationship. And I'm like, well, how are we first doing in our own conflict relationship with ourselves first? Because you can't identify in others what you can't see in yourself first.
Is that how?
At least that's my framework of where I
So how would you? And is that kind of the same area of thought that helps you, or that you use to help somebody figure out what sort of internal direction they should be taking?
Yeah.
Like, how do you really extract that out of somebody? Because I feel like a lot of people just don't know that one.
Yeah.
Because they can easily say that car, that house, because those are just objects in the world.
That's it.
And it's so easy to just to point at something and be like, yeah, goal.
It starts with surfacey type. I call it kind of surfacey type thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's an easy place to start from. But one of the things as I'm working with my clients, one of the reasons why I don't work anything less than 6 months with clients. Some I've been working with 2.5 years, because you get deeper into knowing them.
You got to strip it down.
And who they really are, what their values truly are. Then you reestablish the goals from that, because a lot of times you've got these goals of like, I want to make so much money in my business. I'm like, yeah, but what does that actually mean to you?
Right.
Well, I don't know. It just seems good. It seems like I'm successful, but what does that really mean to you deep down as a human being?
So probably,
what is that going to do to change you?
Yeah.
Well, if they don't know, we have to find that out. Otherwise, it's just they won't be.
So it sounds like
fulfilled.
there's a lot of lack of vision.
There is
in that circumstance.
Right. And a lot of times they just don't know that. They think they should be going after something. But the key is, and here's why the soul line work matters, because being able to be fulfilled in who they are, where they're at, versus always wanting more. If it's goal line based kind of performance, like if I accomplish these things in my life, if I lose a lot of weight, for instance, I worked with.
Well, that's like conditional happiness.
Yeah, it is.
That's
right.
Totally.
It's it. That's why you see a lot of people gain weight back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Lost a lot of weight. I did this, this shake diet, and I go, well, great, you lost weight. One, is it practical to eating? No, going back to practical foods. But the second part, what changed in you though internally, that's going to actually help you sustain this for your life. So as I coach, one of the reasons why I coach long term with people, it's a lifestyle change, and it takes a while to get down to the heart of the matter sometimes of who they are, right? Because we can create a habit in 21 days, right? You see books on that. 21 days of a habit. I'm like, no, that's BS. In a lot of ways, it's not a lifestyle change yet. I find that it's at least 6 months or longer before somebody really applies long enough to where it's intrinsic. It's more of an intrinsic drive. It's more subconsciously. I don't have to think about it. I don't need as much willpower or as much motivation, because people, I'm not motivated. We haven't been doing it long enough to really it becomes subconscious to where it becomes habitual in your life.
Right.
Some things can take a while to build, and it's hard as human beings because we want instant gratification. We want things now. I want results now. Give me the quick tip is what a lot of times when people come to me coaching, I'm like, I'm not the person for you if you want a quick tip. Yeah, I can give you some resources, of course, but that's not the game changer in leadership. That's just that's not really going to change in the internal side of you to where it's really going to help you long term. It might help you in the instant, like, okay, I need to, the keys to open this door over here, but that's not necessarily going to lead to fulfillment, which is the coaching that I get down to is it's the fulfillment part, not just performance. They both come together. I have to actually do work, but I need to know, is the work tethered or tied to the right area?
It sounds like your profession is guiding people to figure out how to fall in love with the work of it's the hard work.
Yeah.
Right. Because you said everybody wants a quick fix, which is so true in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
With us, it's marketing. Everybody wants, well, what can we just do now? And it's like nothing. You can't do anything now to build brand awareness and reputation at the snap of a finger. Like, that's a long, hard work.
Right.
A long process of hard work. Just like if you want to lose a bunch of weight.
Exactly.
You're going to have to be convinced that it's now a lifestyle that you are healthy.
Right.
You are healthy, and you're working from being healthy.
Exactly.
Not towards being healthy.
You just nailed it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I do with my clients, and it's kind of the way that my approach is and just having practiced over the last 5 years and really refining it, because we were talking about how am I shifting myself and applying things myself and taking action in myself first. A lot of it I kind of break down into kind of 4 buckets. One of them, the physical bucket we were talking about, is, am I actively taking care of my body, right? By exercising, by having some mobility in my day, by taking breaks, by having leisurely walks. Am I starting to, am I eating nutritionally? Am I cutting vegetables with my family and making it a fun experience? Am I sleeping well? How's my sleeping? You think it's silly, right? But that's where I start a lot of times, because I realize people take poor care there, and it's such an easy adjustment to make that impacts everything else. And then I'll shift into the mental component. I call it the kind of mental wellness, where I like to use the phrase, what am I watching, reading, listening to? Who am I associating with?
What am I programming myself with? Yeah.
I can tell a lot. Like if somebody's on the news constantly, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody's paying attention to, like this year with COVID, and that's all they do. It's no wonder they're anxious, right?
Yeah.
No wonder they're depressed. So I look at, what are we focusing on? What are we reading? What do we listen to? What are we allowing to download into our brain? And it does impact how we think about ourselves and how we show up in the world.
How could it not?
Right.
Yeah.
And then emotionally, how am I experiencing myself and my relationships? Am I connecting to, so if I have a family or a spouse or a loved one or a partner or friends, am I connecting? This is an interesting year for that, because of social isolation. A lot of people have really struggled.
Yeah.
So you get this area of like, do I wear do I not show up because I'm worried about getting COVID, or do I have mental health in mind where I'm not doing well and I need that? We're wired for connection.
Yeah.
We're not wired to be isolated. So some people have to juggle that. I'm willing to go out with a mask because I need to meet with friends and for my own emotional well-being.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's a bigger need than trying to kind of follow the role of, okay, let me be good at social distancing. Meanwhile, I'm really struggling internally. And so that's an area we look at emotionally. Like, how am I doing in my own emotional intelligence, my own awareness of myself, and how I'm doing with others. And then spiritually too, not just like religiously or faith-wise, but I'm aligned to what matters to me, my purpose, my values.
Right.
Is what I'm doing valuable? I spend a lot of time in that, but it can take a while to get there with clients if we don't know each other, fully up front.
Right.
So, like you said, it takes time to develop what is your core values, and then we really start to align your life to that, and it really starts to become an internal matter instead of these external things that I'm going after. It really starts to become I'm embodying these things.
Yeah, you're not chasing the carrot. You're living your purpose.
Yeah. So the external pressures, stressors, things going on today don't have as much impact because I'm taking care of myself internally.
Right. How important is that?
Yeah.
That carrot that's being dangled in front of your face. How important is that versus you being the best you?
That's it. Because you can't.
It's not even comparable.
Yes, because you can't control. We talked about that word control. You can't control external circumstances.
And you getting that carrot doesn't change the world.
Yep, that's it. So we can control areas within ourselves. So when I'm working with somebody that's a business owner raising a family, I have no time for anything.
Right.
Sometimes we do things in really small spaces of time, but it has to be done.
Right.
It's not optional that I'm taking care of myself in order to be a leader out there.
Yeah. Well, it's like when because you're basically talking directly to me right now and Charlie. So when it comes like physical, it's like I'm usually going to the gym on like a lunch break. It's just the way it works in my life so far. Yeah. And it's like a 30 to 45 minutes at the gym, but to me it's like enough and it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
And I just personally choose not to go in the morning or in the evening. It just works really well for me at midday. And like you said, a small amount, and I'm like, there's bros out there working out 3 hours a day. I'm like, not my life, man. It never will. Well, pretty much never will be.
Yeah.
Like,
and it doesn't have to be. It's because sometimes we make things bigger. Like if I'm not in the gym for an hour, it's not a workout. Where it's like you can do a great 5-minute workout and get a lot accomplished, and that's all you needed. Right. And so it's breaking things down, because that's where a lot of people give up. They get overwhelmed, or they think they need to block out their whole calendar for it. It's like,
and the fact that even popped into my head about like, oh, there's bros out there working out for 3 hours. It's like that programming of thinking about what other people are doing. It's like, man, we are brainwashed.
That's it.
You know?
That's it. Because we see our culture, our society, right? Yeah. Notice when I said what we watch, read, listen to mentally, because we're always comparing what we see out there.
Yeah.
Now, this is not to say, by the way, I should be clear. This is probably one of my values that I just want to like put out there.
Yeah.
While never not comparing yourself to other people is critical, don't use it as an excuse to underperform.
Exactly. That's a good point. Well, and it's huge too, because you do want to see others as influences.
Right.
Like, wow, I love watching like
inspiration.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I love stuff from like John Maxwell leadership, right? Or some different leaders that I follow, but I don't want to be them.
Right.
I want to be myself and take the insights, the nuggets, the wisdom from them, but apply it to the way that I'm created to be.
Right. I mean, and you don't want to be their entire person anyway. They just exemplify. They have certain traits that they exemplify really well.
Yeah.
And it's like use it as inspiration.
Yeah. But it'd be interesting. You'd be surprised to see how many people don't live life from who they are, though.
Yeah, I believe it.
Because we try to match up far too often. And sometimes it goes all the way back to junior high. Think about this with yourself and others of being able to look at how often, why public speaking is the number 2 fear, right? It's probably some people coming on a podcast like this might be a fear because how are people going to look at me? How do I sound?
We've had a few people just be like, I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have those thoughts too, where I'm like, I could sound like a complete idiot, but I'm like, it's okay, it's worth it. I'd rather have the courage to go and see something that I've never seen before,
right? Versus
not going after it, not trying. Because most of us do have that junior high self where it's like, what are people going to think of me? Am I too tall, too short, too fat, too thin? most people carry that the rest of their life. Even if they're a high level leader, you'd be surprised, they still are thinking, how do I look? How do I sound?
I think we could all think of a really good example of that.
Yeah, we do. And I have a lot of people, especially recently, that really struggle with that. And they're high level leaders, like leading HR, leading a company, but they're still, when I'm coaching with them, they're like, I don't know if I can do this meeting. Oh, it's thinking you're already there. What do you mean you think you can't do this? I don't know if I can make
the facade of like, I know what I'm doing, but in reality, I don't.
What we call imposter syndrome, right? Which we all have, by the way. It's not like anything you're learning new, it's going to be a little bit imposter. We don't just walk into something we don't know and be like, yeah, I got this covered, man. This is great. It's like, no, each of us has that. We have that chasm. Like we have to cross into the land of the unknown, the abyss, I call it, and take a step of courage to say, even if I don't know it, that's okay. But that's why it matters when I'm coaching with people. What's your vision? What you want from this? What you want out of this? What you want for yourself and for others? Why does this matter to you? Because then that's that step of courage where it's like, it's worth it. It's scary, but because I want to get here. Right. That's why the vision matters, because then you won't just back out of it because you're scared.
So I have a question. It's a little bit more tactical, I think. Sure. So whether it's with your own self or with your clients, and you explained your 4 buckets, right? You get physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Do you find that you need to work that scheme hierarchically, or do you find that sometimes it's a matter of literally maybe they're good emotionally or mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and the only thing you have to work on is the physical?
Yeah. Well, sometimes I don't always say, how are we doing in the 4 buckets this week, right? Sometimes it's early on in the process so they get the idea, because I do have a lot of my clients journal because it's important to have reflection of what they're doing. I call it, there's kind of 3 areas I'm always working with. What am I doing well? What's working well? What am I learning about myself and others? And where's the opportunity?
Do you ask them to write it by hand?
I do. I have them write it out. Sometimes they do it on their phone, depending on the client, having it on their phone too, or it has to be written down because it's more likely to stick with them. They're going to remember it when we're coaching as part of their growth versus.
Are they journaling with you or on their own?
No, they're journaling on their own.
Like
between coaching. Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like, if you want to call it homework, right? But it's kind of homework on themselves so they can see their own gains. Otherwise, they're looking at gaps far too often.
It reminds me of it's kind of getting towards like the Jordan Peterson self-authoring.
Right. Because he has that suite where it's like, hey, write down a little autobiography and write down like what your next 5 years are going to look like if it goes well. And what's the next 5 years if you give in to your vices? Yeah.
Just think about that. Think about the journal as a play-by-play book. If you're thinking about the NFL and I'm doing like a huddle and I'm coming together to see what the next play is, well, I need to see what the last play was to see how far where I'm at. So it helps me to get involved in someone's life to see what they're doing play-by-play. Say if I'm coaching them once every 2 weeks, how do I know how they're doing in between, where their thinking is, how they're doing physically, how they're doing spiritually and emotionally? I don't know unless they're tracking some of that.
Right. And they're gonna forget.
Right. So the key on the last question, I'll say, where is there still opportunity? Notice I don't say, where are you still weak? Where do you still need, right? Because weekness, it's like not necessarily weakness.
You're not asking them necessarily to do a SWOT analysis.
Yes, because we go to problems far too often. Anywhere between 80
We're so focused on problem solving all the time.
Right. When you think about it in the studies, anywhere between 80 to 85% of our thinking is negative. Think about your day. Most of the time we're thinking about those problems. Oh, man, if this only wasn't in the way.
That stack of papers.
Yeah.
Freaking,
so that 20 to 25% that we do have that's positive self-talk, we have to really up the ante, right? I do a lot of affirmations with my clients.
Okay.
Kind of pointing out things they're doing well. But that opportunity is huge because then they say, oh, I have opportunity here. Because notice failure, when we look at failure, people are like, oh, I failed in this. I'm like, you didn't fail unless you decided to sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing with the rest of your life.
Right.
Everything outside of that is learning.
Like pure failure is almost impossible.
Yeah. Because when people fail, it comes down to me, right?
Right.
What I didn't do, I must not be good enough. I must need to learn more. Identity.
Yep.
Versus when failure as a learning opportunity. Think about the businesses that maybe some of you even had on this podcast that have maybe failed the most in the sense of didn't hit their goals or things didn't work out as well. But that's what your best top businesses in the world do. They fail and fail often.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's that being able to see it as, this is great. I failed at this. Not in a sense where I'm like, I'm going to go out and just try to fail, but it's looking at it as I'm taking a step forward and moving forward of courage towards my vision. And by failing this, it taught me valuable learning to help me make corrections this direction versus I'm terrible at this and let me just fold the towel and quit my business. Right. You see, that's why 50% of businesses fail within the first couple years. Yeah. And then you see like 80 to 90% of businesses fail within 5 years because of that. Yeah. One, they're comparing. And two, they're not seeing failure as feedback. They're seeing it as they're just terrible at this and they need to just fold the towel and do something else.
Yeah, the feedback thing is super important. And look, and it's like, let's be realistic here. No matter what action you take ever, you cannot tell me with 100% factual certainty that you are going to get the outcome that you're going for.
Exactly.
There's just too many other, like, so with that said, like, basically factually, you can't predict the future is what I'm saying.
Right.
So you have to just go with your best foot forward.
That's it.
And with the openness to be able to adapt.
So what you just said right there is why so many people seek coaching in the leadership realm of what I do.
To begin with.
Yes, because what you just said, think of it, if you want to think about let's use this metaphor. If I'm trying to fly to New York from Sacramento, I want to here's my objective, my vision, my goal is getting from here to there, right?
If you never move.
Right. But here's the thing. If I'm going out there on my own, I'm not checking in, right? I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing daily in my actions and my growth and my intentions. What am I doing? I can end up, way up in Alaska. I can be down in Texas. I can be up in Michigan. I can be down in Florida. I'm kind of zigzagging my way to my goal,
right?
Without knowing what's going on. Or when I coach people,
tighten it up.
We tighten it up that's why we check in sometimes weekly, depending on what the goal is, so that they can course correct faster when they're getting out of alignment.
So it's really it's a journey of course correction.
Yeah.
It
is because
getting people familiar with that.
Yeah, because if they get too far out of alignment, then it turns into
another project just to get back.
It can be I'm not good enough. It must be me. They start to have limited beliefs,
or they start or maybe not justifying where they're at, but they're trying to. It's cognitive. What is it called? When your bias you naturally confirm where you're at.
Yeah.
You look for reasons that explain confirmation bias.
Yes.
You look for reasons in the world that explain your circumstances.
That's it. And how I look at that is I call it descriptive language. Descriptive is describing what was and up to this point, past to present, right? I look at data. I look at targets because I do a lot of this work with companies. Oh, this is where we're at financially. This is where we're at in our customer service because I do a lot of customer service work. Or this is where we're at in up to this point. But the problem is in itself, it's not motivating.
Right.
I don't go to somebody and say, hey, this is where you're at. Oh, I'm so excited.
Unless you've chosen to celebrate some of those things.
You celebrate. So, but looking at it, it's the past up to now. So we develop a story. But the key is
a narrative.
Right. A narrative. Yeah. The key is also creating what I call generative language. I'm generating. Think of like a generator where I'm firing up and you're generating something, you're sparking something, you're creating something new, afresh. From this point, kind of moving forward, you're creating something that you're going to instill into, whether it's your business, your life, your family, something that's going to be taking action moving forward versus let me just go off the past trends. This is where a lot of people go based on, you see this in relationships because they
look at the data.
Right, because my history, I started as a marriage and family therapist training before I switched over to coaching, and you see a lot of this, so-and-so has always been this way. I'm like, well, they're going to stay that way because you think of them that way.
Right.
Versus generative is like they have an ability to grow themselves if they choose. If they choose to lean into help, if they choose to take action on themselves.
We're all flexible.
Right.
Yeah.
If I can see somebody as able to grow, they'll grow.
Yeah.
Right? Because people usually respond to you and how you see them.
Yep.
They just do. It's really interesting. So if I
Whoa. That was powerful.
Yeah.
People respond to how you see them.
They do.
Wow.
They do. That's one of the biggest work I do. I'm always getting coached because I believe it has to be. For me to show up as a great coach, I have to be coachable and work on myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so part of what my coach has been working with me on is that aspect of what, of being able to show up with somebody without a bias. It's hard, right? Because you're like, well, based on what so-and-so told me about them, they're kind of got this or that tendency. Well, it's good to know, maybe for safety, or you want to be, you don't want to be completely sideswiped by someone. But most of the time people create a story about someone else and you're listening to them without finding out for yourself, who is this person really? And can this person choose to be someone different today?
Right.
Or are they just going to be their past history and that's all I ever see them as? That takes work. It's a process. It's not right. So this has been like 5 years of me growing in this, of showing up and working with a client or a person or an individual or a business or a team and removing the story. Like the story's helpful in a sense because we can see where we've been, but I don't stay there and I go, okay, let's rewrite the script. Tell me how you'd like to show up moving forward. And if we look at that, then we start to see excitement. We start to see enthusiasm. We start to see hope. Because they're not living on the past story that they're tethered to, think about like a prisoner that has like a shackle around their ankle and they can never seem to get that ball and chain removed from them. We have to remove the ball and chain for them to start really seeing life afresh and new possibilities, new hope.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that just strikes me as really difficult, but so rewarding.
Yeah. It's not easy to get there. That's why when I work with clients, we're stripping layers away of past story, past stuff they put on themselves, past hurts, past failures that have climbed up. So think about peeling an artichoke, not an onion, because the artichoke you get to the middle and it's awesome. Onion you get to the middle and you don't get anywhere.
Right.
Think of it like peeling back an artichoke in someone's life.
It gets better and better.
Yeah. Where's all these thoughts, these feelings, these emotions come from? And we really get down to who you are. Now we get to have fun.
Yeah. So a good leader is generative in their analysis. Yep. And they look at the people that they're influencing and leading as flexible people who have a huge ability to adapt and grow.
Yeah, so you think about it, it's kind of a frame of reference.
If they're gardening people.
Yes. Yeah. So if you think about it, it's a way that we have to see human beings. We can see human beings as evil and awful and and creating destruction. Or we can see people as beautiful, wonderfully created, people that have opportunities because they're created to do that. People that want to do good in the world. Yeah. So you think about it's kind of a frame of reference as the coach to be able to say, I see beauty in you and I know it's there even though you're not showing it to me in the moment.
Right.
Who else speaks to someone like that?
Right.
That's valuable because most people speak to you based off the story they know about you.
Right.
Versus who they know you can be, getting to know you at a deeper level.
This is super
valuable.
valuable.
Even if you choose not to walk into it, the coach is still going to hold that line of like, I know that you can be this if you choose to. I'm going to be patient and walk with you through it.
So a good affirmation for somebody who wants to be a better leader is something like, I see my employees or my family members or my friends, like I see them as people with great opportunity. I see my family as generous people. I see my employees as hardworking, adaptable people. I see my, and you start using affirmations in that way.
Exactly. Think about it with kids, right? Raising kids. Great example. Kids are the best playing ground for this. They are because they're they represent truth and honesty in so many ways. And think about how we are with kids. If we use positive affirmations and we build them up and we love on them and we share with them and we sit with them when they're having temper tantrums and we instead of just kind of trying to call the obvious of getting upset and allowing distance in our relationship. Think about kids, how they better respond to positive affirmations about who they are in themselves versus negative reinforcement or I'm going to take this away from you. I'm going to ground you. This is going to be removed. Well, how motivating is that to them? Oh, I'm going to all of a sudden just change and get better, Dad. It's like, no, it's typically we're connecting with them on a deeper level who they are, even if their actions don't align with who they could be. That's the key of leadership is can I rise above what's going on in the moment to still see the person? who they are, the heart of who they are,
Yep.
what they're capable of doing. Can I get past the angst of the moment,
Yeah.
and what I don't, because a lot of times when we get upset with someone, it's their actions, it's not them.
Right.
It's not them as a human being, it's what they did, their action wise.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But we tend to attack someone's character, like, you always do this, you're terrible. It's like, well, that's not true.
Right.
It's what you did impacted me in a negative way.
The artichoke analogy is just incredible.
That's it. So kids is a great place to start, because it really helps you see. It's very similar working with as a business owner as I am with my kids. So if I don't relate with my kids well, you're not going to relate with your staff, with your clients as well. You just won't. It's a great place to be vulnerable.
Interpersonally, it's the same skill.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. And so that's why I think when you think about leadership, it's this place of emotional intelligence. When I see the greatest struggle with people, it's because of, we call it the soft skills, right? How am I emotionally connected to myself? Am I aware of myself today? How am I feeling? How am I showing up? How am I doing? And then can I be aware of someone else? Sometimes it has to come down to, I stop talking. I just listen to people. Yeah. Leadership is a lot more listening than talking. Can I stop and listen to someone long enough without interrupting their thought process? Most people interrupt right? You think about it. We interrupt people's thought process. They never get to fully speak out what they meant to say. So as a leader, a lot of times I'm going to actually zip it and allow you to fully allow a thought to come out in words.
Oh yeah, I was even thinking about that. Probably like taking a shower this morning. How like I was thinking about a situation in my life, and I'm like, if that ever came up, it would be best for me to just shut up.
Yeah.
And not say anything unless asked.
Yeah.
To.
And that's hard. It takes practice. It takes work, right? It's one of the reasons why I still get coached myself, is because I haven't arrived there yet, and that's okay. But it's a process. It's a journey, right? There's no such thing as perfection, because a lot of the clients I work with, going back to the doctor analogy, medical school does not set them up for having a good life in the sense of that.
Right.
They're always measured on perfection.
Yep.
Man, when you get them to see,
was it a successful surgery or not?
Yeah, when you get them to see that, right? Because then failure is a bad thing. Oh, I failed in this. It's like, well, how is you going to learn? You haven't done this before.
Yeah.
Right. It's you can't arrive already having the knowledge in you already. So you have to practice. So it's getting people to see life as progress and practice. That is probably the number one thing that I also do as a leadership coach, is seeing that I wake up and I practice. Think about sports. Sports is a great analogy, because I wake up and I practice a craft, right? I practice a craft so that I can get better. Am I going to always win the Super Bowl or the World Series? No. Might be my vision. Right. But my goal is to get better at what I do every day.
I like that. Like, be a practitioner.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be a practitioner at a multitude of different things.
Exactly.
Like if we want to keep it simple and you want just to be really effective and not complicate your life, be a practitioner of your physical health.
Yep.
Be a practitioner of your mental health. Be a practitioner of your emotional well-being. Be a practitioner of your spiritual connection to whom or whatever.
That's it, because the answer lies in that. When people get stuck, frustrated, think about this year with COVID. A lot of people, the most people that are upset,
so manipulated,
have high expectations of themselves or the world, and they're not paying attention to their mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual buckets enough to see how am I pouring into that today?
Right.
Am I pouring into that? Because I can be. Here's the thing. I can
so
be.
Much work.
Because I can. It's okay to be frustrated with what's going on, but let it lead to concern versus worry. Right. Worry is nothing I can do about it, but I'm just going to sit here and worry myself to death. Concern is, I am concerned about it. I do get frustrated with it, but there's something I can do with it. I can actually take something of action towards it. That's a big difference.
That's Stephen Covey's. He calls it the circle of influence.
That's it.
And it's like you at the center.
Yep.
Then the circle around you is your control.
That's it.
And then around that is your influence. And then around that is your concern.
That's it. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, it's always what I can do versus what I can't. Because what I can't, remember, most of us think about 80% of problems or negative self-talk. Well, it runs into, I can't do this because, think about with COVID this year, or just everything that's going on, or business-wise, and I had to shift my business and adapt and flex. And I go, well, it's, the Navy SEALs aren't the best because they're the strongest or the smartest. They're the best because they practice adapting and flexing to their environment constantly.
Yeah.
Businesses this year, families this year, working with myself this year, right, in our own physical well-being. That's where it comes down to.
Yep. Yeah.
I wonder if there's like, this is a question. Do you ever get into like, it's kind of like the affirmations thing,
Sure,
but where it's like coaching them on the self-talk language, not like, okay, every morning do your affirmations, but I'm talking about like the in the moment, in the day.
Yeah.
How do you think about like, the problems, like, for example, this morning we had like the guys doing the leaf blowing outside and it was like interrupting the recording. And so, you could go to the talk of like, oh, this is like a problem. It's always going to be a problem because they're always here on Saturdays.
Yeah.
We always record on Saturdays, so it's always going to be it's like, well, that's not a good.
So that's a good example of descriptive language based on what we know. When we come in Saturday, they're blowing, right? Kind of, we have a story. We have a history on it. We know that this is coming that way. So we can go by default and just complain about it every Saturday. Or
just suffer from it.
Right, and suffer from it. Or we can, going into generative language, being like, what can I do in this? I can talk to the owner who runs the leaf blowing business. I could shift my hours and schedule my time back when there's not the noise interference. That's one aspect.
It's like solutions-based thinking, like just being cognizant in the moment of, am I thinking about solutions or am I thinking about the problem?
That's the one component. The other component is, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
The other component is, can I roll with it and be like, it's not that big of a deal? That one takes more work sometimes because I have to be able to step into it and say, is it really that big of a deal to get upset over? The answer is always usually going to be no. Sometimes it is. It's like, okay, this is going to cancel the whole thing. But most of the time, things in life are not as big as we think they are. And so I'm willing to roll with it, kind of going back to the adaptable and flexible. Can I roll with it emotionally, though? Can I roll with things and say, I can work with that? Because it goes back into what can I do? Because we already know what I can't do is I got noise in the background. So I can't just record during that time. But what can I do? So like today, rolling with it was a good example. I roll with it to get my objective met still. Right. So I still work with the variables, what I can do. Right.
Well,
so that's the other
like we
side.
can just wait another 10 minutes.
Right. In the moment, kind of impromptu, working with situations. That's leadership too. How can I work with the challenge? And that's where character's revealed in people. How do I work with when something comes up?
We're not rescheduling the recording. Yeah. Well, we are in the sense of like 10 minutes, but not.
And the key is, it's okay if I lose it and lose my cool or get upset, or I handle it like a champion. When I coach people, it's learning to take the judgment seat off and say, that's okay, we're growing. Right? Maybe I reacted initially this way, but I'm learning to react a little less that way each time. Or I'm catching myself in the middle of getting upset with my kids or other partners in business, and I'm starting to catch myself and go, that's not really the outcome. It's not going to lead to the outcome I want with them. So I'm starting to capture myself sooner. This is why journaling matters. And then we're coaching through that.
Did you say adrenaline?
Adrenaline.
What matters?
What matters? Journaling matters.
Journaling. Sorry. I thought you said it.
Well, journaling could. Journaling could also not help.
Tonight, I'm journaling about.
There you go. So that's why journaling matters, because we want to see how you're growing. I call it like the 1% better every day. How am I 1%? Because most of us see I need to get better at this like today.
Right.
Versus, I was getting upset at this potential customer or this client relationship, and I let it just continue to rabbit trail down. Versus, I started getting upset. I kind of noticed my heart rate. I noticed my blood pressure going up. I noticed within myself that I was going to defensive mode. I stopped, paused, took a breath, or I took a timeout. I did kind of like we tell kids to have a timeout. Well, a lot of times as adults, we need it too. Being able to pause and stop and redirect. That's a key to growth too, is can I do that sooner? Not, I did this perfectly, and me and my wife handled this conflict, no problem. It's like, no, we started to go down the wrong road, and then I paused and redirected. And that's where I started to learn the value of redirection, of changing something, an alternate, pivoting. Going back to the analogy of flying from Sacramento to New York, If I pivot sooner, I'm not wasting time and energy going down this story.
Right. And it's just a matter of learning, like, okay, well, I still went down that story, but I pivoted like 5 minutes earlier.
So think about where more your energy goes back into creating versus accusing versus frustration versus being ticked off.
Reliving.
Yeah. Most of us waste a lot of energy that could be used creating, exploring, innovating, loving others.
So I would, me personally, I would consider myself a creative person in relation, like if there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm more creative than not creative. But I'm also an analyst. So I'm a creative analyst. That gives me, and they could both be strengths, but also both be weaknesses if I'm not at my best self.
Yeah.
So the analyst part, and there's a lot of analysts in the world, by the way. I think if you were to break the population down into like, you're like an analyst, an idealist, a realist, or some like a synthesist of sorts, like analysts are probably like the most common, like default, or not default, just a very common way of thinking. We just like sit here and think, and it's like, as an analyst, if you're one, you need to be careful of reliving and analyzing that story over and over, because that's you're wired to do that. And but that's when you're not performing your best. You're just sitting there reanalyzing, reprocessing, and it's like, okay, you might get some value out of that. You might learn some things, but at the same time, you need to realize that it's like stop, pause, wake up for a second, and look around and be like, oh, there's nothing to be extracted out of that anymore.
Exactly. So here, that's a good, going back to analogy to help people that listen to how does that apply. Think about it with going back to sports, NFL, for instance. Think about, they need to look at what happened in the previous game, stats, the outcome, what happened, play by play, so they can learn. But notice they have like what they call like Tell the Truth Mondays after a game.
Well, and they also break.
It's right. They might spend a day, 2 days max focused on what went wrong, what do we do well, what happened there, what can we do differently, analysis. But then they move on to the next team, creating, building. What do we need to do next? What do we need to prepare next? What do we need to visualize next? 3/4 of their time, more of that is spent on preparing for the next road ahead, and maybe a quarter to a third max is spent on analyzing what was before. So analyzing matters, but if we do too much time there, it takes away the steam of what we need to do next.
And it can also pit you into a certain corner.
Exactly.
So for if I think about what I just said to you, which is like, oh, I'm a creative person and I'm an analyst. Like I just categorized myself, which is fine. It's good to know yourself. But it's almost like I should be careful with what I'm telling myself, because what if, like, okay, yeah, I'm creative, great. Yeah. But why do I need to keep telling myself that? Right? Yeah. Maybe I need to just be more neutral and just be like, well, I am who I am. And then it's like I relieve myself of that prescribed identity.
Yeah. Well, and think about, a lot of us get stuck in our thoughts far too long. Yeah. We forget to take action, doing something like going for a run. Simple things that snap me out of my thinking. I call it kind of stinking thinking, right? Snap me out of this idea of like, I kind of get stuck in there. And the more I get stuck in my thought, this is why a lot of people have a hard time this year, even with social isolation, is because we get stuck in our own thoughts. We don't have other people to bounce ideas off of. We don't have conversations. We're not connecting with people. And we get stuck in ourselves, in our own current thinking. And a lot of times, like I said, it's not good. Yeah. So you see, a lot of things that have really play out in the human being. That's why when you have prisoners and somebody's in prison, and then the worst, say the worst criminals get, what do you call it? Social,
like the isolation.
Yeah. When they get
solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement is it puts them into animal instinct. Yeah. It makes a human being turn into an animal, literally. So you think about that in ourselves.
Sense. Yeah.
We get stuck in our thinking without really getting out there and maybe connecting with others, or being able to work something out in action. This is where creating, the beautiful part of creating is I'm doing something. I can't now sit back and think about how depressed or anxious I am when I'm actually building something.
Yeah, because now you have this thing at hand. Like, if you're not paying attention to the sandcastle you're building, it's going to schmelt. Yeah. It's right back into the,
Yeah, like for instance, it'd be hard for me to be, hey, I'm creating something right now. I'm in a great conversation here, you know, at Auburn Business Ventures. Oh, but I'm so depressed. Life is just terrible. It'd be hard for my brain to go both directions at the same time.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Doesn't mean I might not feel down today or feel a little under the weather.
And it would be super awkward if like the whole time you were like being super negative.
So the brain has a hard time doing that. The brain has a hard time going both directions. So if I do something creative, I'm talking about something action oriented. This is where coaching is. Coaching is action. Right? And not always action on performance, though, remember. Sometimes it's action in the soul line where I might be spending more time studying, reflecting, meditating, praying, playing with my kids. It's not going to always be, I'm going to go out there and attack my business. In fact, that's the opposite thing you should be doing. Sometimes it's I need to go on a trail for 2 hours and have some solitude time. And that gives me the answer I needed for my business. What I find is people get too stuck involved in what they're doing. They don't pull themselves away. Well, that's why Bill Gates takes off a week a year to his cabin that doesn't have any
anything
Wi-Fi internet. And you're thinking this billionaire,
right? This computer
not connected
billionaire.
to his tethered to his computer.
Yeah,
if he's doing it, what am I not doing?
It's like his house in Washington probably like takes his pulse and temperature when he walks in the front door.
So that's the key, because it's like not necessarily going back to that, not comparing to Bill Gates, but looking at and learning from him and saying if he's doing that and he gets some of his best thinking about what to do with Microsoft when he comes back, what can I do to step away? And so somebody that's a high performer oftentimes doesn't know how to I need to let go of the grip, let go.
Right.
Let go of the grip and let's go have some leisure, some fun, some play, some dancing, some singing. I actually have to do that with a lot of my clients. It's like we're going to have some time of laughter. They haven't laughed in weeks, months. So you think it's simple. It's like, well, that should be as simple as it, right? But it's, as a coach, it's like we need more doses of fun. That's why you're so stuck and upset about things, because you're not experiencing enough emotional fulfillment.
Can we talk about focus and distraction? Because what you kind of just touched on, somebody who's like insanely focused and needs to be relieved.
Yeah.
But then there's maybe other people who feel like they're overly burdened because of distraction.
Yeah.
And I think the main culprit these days is going to be maybe your phone, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Because you can just so easily thumb your way into Facebook or thumb your way into some sort of distracting situation.
That's a great example.
And they don't even know why they feel anxious and out of alignment.
Yeah.
Is that something that you address a lot?
Big time. You know, I work a lot with ADHD clients too.
Ooh.
I work a lot with distraction. And a lot of times, left to our own devices, like you said, we don't realize what's going on.
Right.
But when we coach through it, we actually break down day by day what's going on. I realize a lot of the clients I'm working with have their phone tethered to them. Or like I have mine on my hip right now, but it's on silent because I knew it would probably buzz right in the middle of our podcast.
Yeah.
And so with clients, I'm working with, because think about the text, the dings, the emails, it's the dopamine release, the rush for that is higher than they're finding than even drugs themselves, right?
It's like if you're getting a ding with every email, it's insane. Because I clear my thing, like unsubscribe. But there's other people that don't, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could not.
So that's what we do, and that's the value of coaching is it kind of gets down to the reality of what your day is like. Because a lot of times they're like, I know it, but coaching is like, what are we actually going to do with it though? So a lot of times, like for me, for instance, because we all have to work on that because it's a strong impulse. I'll put my phone on silent or airplane mode between 6 and 9 p.m. So clients know that.
Yep.
The only people that can get in is like my wife's gone. She can bypass that if it's like an emergency. But I start aligning myself to saying I'm turning things off, airplane mode, or I'm putting things like you said, notifications. When I'm coaching people, we're actually doing it on the spot. So right now we're actually putting our phone on airplane between such and such, and then we're going to actually measure that as we coach because you say, okay, I get so distracted, so then it's like, great, we're actually gonna. This is where the making things practical comes in, is where we're actually looking at what do we need to do. And sometimes when I coach, we're doing it on the spot. Like I'm helping them adjust their phone or laptop because I know once they leave the coaching, out of sight, out of mind. So sometimes I'm doing it on the spot.
Close the door in their car and like fling.
So we're identifying when are they getting distracted. What can we do to cut out distraction? Sometimes it's work. You see a lot of people that are working from home, myself this year, kids, other things, distracted. So I work with a lot of clients that really it's been a struggle. because they can't compartmentalize. Everything just kind of implodes together as one. And so getting them to really chisel out either space for themselves, time for themselves, or being able to kind of block out interferences or distractions, even if they seem great, like a little kid running in your office, but that could really distract you from being in flow of your work.
Right.
So we'll look at that and look at the variables and say, what's distracting you? Is it your phone? Is it family? Is it the fact that your whole work situation has shifted? You're not working in maybe a corporate office.
Did you just realize you don't like your job?
Yeah.
Like,
but it could be that.
Yeah.
I could be. Here's where I go down to. When I'm working with people, it's usually I always get down to my big why. Why do I even want to do maybe something that they're trying to accomplish? Why do I even want it?
Right.
Because if they don't know that's probably why you're not committed. That's why you're not accomplishing your goal, because you don't even know why you want it. That's the first part I would go, actually, is why does it matter that I'm not distracted? What am I trying to accomplish? The second part is we have to have something that's timeable, kind of more of a timeline or measurable. Like,
is that something you always ask your client when they come to you and they say, hey, Steve, I want to be better at this, or I want to do that? Do you always kind of come at them with the why?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It might come out differently depending on how much I know them.
Just not bluntly.
Right.
Like, why do you want that, dude?
Yeah, because we might need to explore, like, tell me more about it. What does that mean to you? But it always comes down to, why would this matter when things get rough or things get difficult, or you're like running outside, the weather doesn't match, it's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, or it's 100 degrees. How much does it really matter to you? Because we want to bypass feeling and emotion and get to what they actually want.
Right.
Yeah, the emotion is I call it, and I'm not an expert, people, but I just call it the end point of like a mental process.
Yeah.
You're right. So like I meet you for the first time, and it's like, okay, Steven, there's like that micro experience of introducing ourselves to each other, and we exchange some talk and whatever, but then there's always like an emotion at the end of every sentence and facial expression, and they're like micro emotions, and that's how you, like, it's kind of like your gut checking things as you go. Shoot, I lost my train of thought.
Well, you can't use that to continue to motivate you to do difficult things,
because it's temporary. Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. But when you think about why we do anything, though, a lot of times too, I'd also ask values. I do a lot of value checking with people to say, what does it really mean to me? What does it mean to me to actually have accomplished this? And how do other people experience me accomplishing that or stepping into that? So if I want to be more, say, loving,
right,
I would say, how does your wife, how does your kids, how does your business partners, how does your clients experience you living that today? This is where drilling comes in. Because then they're like, well, somebody mentioned this about me. Oh, I kind of felt like there was a good connection. Great. Or, oh man, I was kind of, today was not a good day. I yelled at my kid or my wife. I said, good. But we get to play with that. We get to play with that and say, okay, my goal is to be more loving. I'm not being more loving, or I'm starting to be more loving. Here's why. That helps them to start talk about affirmation. They have to see it in themselves.
Right.
If you can't see your own growth, it's hard for you to believe in your ability to then carry it out.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because, like we had already mentioned earlier, we tend to default to the narrative in the story.
We do.
And so, and it's really, I want to ask you about this too.
Sure.
It's a motivation question.
Sure.
And how, let's make a dichotomy here between your emotional realm and your spiritual realm.
Sure.
And be like, okay, your why or your purpose or where you're working towards, or from. Sure, it could be. I don't care in this situation, to or from. But the idea of motivation being temporary, also. Yeah. And I think there's probably something like emotional motivation and spiritual motivation. Yeah. And the emotional motivation is like what most people think that they need more of. Yeah. And it's good and it's powerful, but it's as long lasting as a piece of zebra gum.
Right. But sometimes, though, it might be the catalyst to get you to the spiritual growth. For instance, I want to feel better about myself, so I attend a conference.
Like a good kickstart.
Yeah. I might attend a conference on a subject matter or something that I want to grow in. And so I'm interested in it. But when I come away from the conference, it's something, if I want to start applying it, right? Of course, this is where coaching comes into the application, but starting to now apply it to a deeper purpose of what I want to use it for, so I can get kind of it might be a catalyst for shifting or changing me. But I still need to spend time developing and developing that into what does it mean to me? How do I apply it? Because a lot of times people ask me, what do I do? What do you do what do you do when I'm at a conference? It's a great question. It's
what do you
do with people? I go, I help you apply what you just learned there into your actual life versus coming away and like hoping that you just miraculously make some changes in your life. Some people will. Some people can,
because it's easy to get fired up.
Yeah.
You go to a conference, you get fired up.
That's it.
Great.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be that fired up every day.
You're not. And so it has to tether to something deeper, a deeper value. Like, what is this what part of this means to you? Maybe not everything. And
then are you working from it?
And then are you working from it? And then we're checking in to see how you're doing, kind of going back to the analogy of alignment, flying from Sacramento to New York. We're continuing to check in to align how you're doing with that.
Right.
And it's easy.
How you're wrestling with that.
It's easy for all of us to think, in theory, if you were to do it perfectly, you would just stay right on Highway 80 and it would take you. It's like, dude, it's not realistic.
Yeah. It's not reality. We're human beings.
Mm-hmm. You got to get off the freeway and get some gas somewhere. Yes. You got to get off the freeway and get some food. Maybe you got to take a break and go see something on your way there. That's a long trip, man.
Yeah. So that's the key. It's seeing us as not human perfections. We're humans in progress, right? But it's being able to get back up and say, do I want to use my time, energy, and resources in a way that's going to align to the things I want to accomplish, or am I going to continue to struggle and waste a lot of unnecessary time, energy, and resources going down this other path? And so that's why coaching matters in the sense of me coaching. I love that part of it, but also being coached. Somebody holding the line for me when I start to go, I can't do this anymore, or I'm starting to feel the weight of something, for instance, maybe a big decision I have to make. Man, it's so great to have another person to bounce that off of, to say, this is what I'm thinking. Can we work through that situation so that I come out of it maybe a little clearer or feeling a little bit more of possibility from it? And so sometimes that's it too. It's being able to just communicate and talk through a situation. Somebody feels better. I didn't do anything except for we just sat there and we kind of looked at it, observed it, and then sometimes things come up in yourself, go, maybe this is something I could try this week. I didn't even do anything. I just sat there with you.
I don't want anybody listening for a minute to think that, a coach having a coach diminishes their legitimacy.
Right.
Because it's like, it's a spotter. Yeah. It's a freaking spotter.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe a heavy equipment operator. Yeah. He's been doing it for 20, 30 years. He's the best in the business. Yeah. But now and then he's still going to need a spotter.
Yeah. So think about a collaborator, kind of somebody that really is a liaison for you. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Somebody that knows more about you probably than a lot of people do in the aspects of what you want, who you are, because as you get to know each other, you're really revealing, that bigger why, the values, the things that make you. And a coach helps you to see that beauty lived out. So when you're not living it out, they're not going to just, say, oh, no big deal. You don't have to. It's always going to be in a loving, truthful, and asking permission sense, meaning, can I give you feedback? Mm-hmm. A way that you're going to feel called to want to take action, and accountability. It's not, oh, you didn't do your action this week, what's wrong with you? It's more of, what's it like to step into this action? What's it like when you're not? And what can we do to just take a step forward today, moving forward? Right. Not digging into the story. I don't need to hear, our whole coaching session be the story. We want to spend a little more time on right now. What do we need to do to get back on the saddle? Think about falling off the horse and getting back up, because it matters. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The vision I want matters. The mission I'm currently on matters. Who I'm impacting as a leader matters. So we get right back on and we keep working. That's sometimes is all people need. Sometimes, of course, they need, we can go different directions of saying, okay, they haven't been taking good care of themselves, so we maybe have to resurrect some of those things. But a lot of times people just need to get back on the saddle and keep riding because they fell off and they decided not to get back on. It's like sometimes we just get back on and we keep moving forward. And it's like, oh my goodness, why didn't I think of that myself? Well, because we get stuck in our own emotional duress. We get stuck in the, kind of like when I tell people that when they get stuck in a problem, we'll get out of the mud and go somewhere else, kind of like that Bill Gates analogy of going away for a week. Sometimes we have to get out just maybe for a 30-minute run. I separate myself from the problem. My solution was created because I separated. So a lot of times I'll do that with clients. It's really being able to say, have I separated myself from the problem today to give myself elevation, gaining elevation on it, seeing it from a different perspective.
I think you and I, when we talked on the phone a few weeks ago, you were talking about that, like helping somebody find a high point.
Right, and that's where a coach would come in too, to talk about this collaboration.
Yeah.
Coach is not going to be stuck in the emotion of what's going on with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at it from a logical, more of a rational place of
it's
like,
the only place you can.
Have we looked at, think about it like if you're on a mountain looking down, it's like, have you looked at this, this, and this? And they're like, I didn't even see that.
I was busy climbing.
Yeah.
And
so that's a lot of times where coaching comes in too, where it's nothing of like you're a genius. It's more of you got a chance to see something perspective wise that helped them to reconnect to other options, because they get stuck in like, right. A lot of us do this when we're upset with someone, right?
Right.
We get stuck in the, this emotional override, right? Of why something's not working out or what somebody's not doing versus how do we just get our relationship back on track again?
Right.
What's one thing we can do to connect? Well, I could have a conversation with them. Oh, that seems like, right? Genius. But it's like, because we get so stuck in like, I can't talk to them. I can't connect. We're right. And so sometimes it's just breaking the mold of let's take one simple step to move us forward that could actually make a big impact on you. But it takes courage, boldness. Take somebody that's holding the line for you. Think about a coach is holding the line. Like, I'm not going to let you jump off the ship just because you don't feel like it today. I'm holding the line with love, truth, and permission to help you get where you said you wanted to go. So if you said you really wanted to do this, then we're not just jumping off because you don't feel like it today. It's let's get back up and let's work on this. Think about when you're doing something, a coach is doing the goal with you. So you're in it together.
Yeah.
If you're not getting where you need to, the coach is also gonna.
And if you're doing it for a friend, you are just the best kind of friend.
That's it. That's it.
That's
it. And so, but it comes down to that point where we all, like you said, we all need someone to support us, right? Not cheerlead. Cheerlead would be like, great job. Oops. It'd be like, great job. Like, I'm just cheering you on. A coach is going to really hold the line for you.
Yeah.
They're really going to lean into you and help you really see yourself to the fullest and not just cheerlead, right? But really help you step into who you're meant to be, right? And what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And it might take 3, 4, 5 years to get there. It might take a couple months, right? But typically when you're getting down to the deeper layer of the artichoke, that's why when I'm coaching people, it takes, it's a bigger journey than just a quick, these quick little instant wins and I'm good to go.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because it's building those long-term goals, values, and really getting to know yourself. And that's not an overnight process at all.
And you're right. And it's helping them to see further than they did before.
Yeah.
Their vision now has expanded because of what they just did and now they're looking at what they can do more than they did before. So your vision doesn't just stay stagnant again, right?
Oh, right.
It continues to expand as you expand.
It's like an atmosphere.
Yeah.
I always think about vision as like atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's like this thing that's like, it's out there.
Yeah.
And it's like amorphous and it kind of is what you make of it,
But it matters because it helps us weather through the storms of life. If I don't have a vision, I'm going to easily fold the towel.
Yep.
I just will.
Yep.
Tough day, I don't feel like doing it. But if I go back to my vision, okay, this is worth getting up and at least taking one step.
So if there was so much good stuff in this talk, I'm going to be able to repurpose this content like 80 times. But so if somebody listening right now is, you really spoke to them and they want to reach out to you and maybe connect on LinkedIn or email you, or if you have a website, like what are the different ways that people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, probably the best one I'd say is my website, because right there they can easily get a hold of me. I'd say go into CoachSteveSeay.com, so www.CoachSteveSeay. So Steve, just S-T-E-V, no N on there, even though my name is Steven, but Steve, for the website purpose. So CoachSteveSeay.com is probably the best way to reach me, so they can kind of look a little bit more into who I am and what I do, and they can send me like an inquiry there, and I can definitely reach back to them. So that's probably the best way to reach me.
That's awesome. And we'll put links in the podcast descriptions and in the YouTube descriptions.
Perfect.
So yeah, we'll have you send those over. And
yeah,
I think we could wrap it up. I think we
touched a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
In the span of time, I think we really got down to the bottom of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being on the show.
You're absolutely welcome. It was a pleasure.
Have a great weekend, man.
Thank you. You as well.